Hello, Fluffers. My name is Felix, a purple wolf from the United States.
And my name is Uno. I'm a green raccoon from the United Kingdom.
And welcome back to Fluff It, a podcast for furries by furries. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today's episode is going to be a fun one. So, I went to the United Kingdom last December, or the December of 2021, and to see Uno. And the one thing that we talked about there in the UK is the differences of animal mascots, anthropomorphic mascots, and furry mascots in different brands, because it seems like that the United States and the United Kingdom uses furry mascots for different brands and different genre or different fields. So today we are going to kind of talk about how both countries use furry mascots and really see if we were right or wrong about that. So with this time constraints, we're probably not going to get to every single furry mascot that we know, but we hope that we will give a good idea of what the United States and the United Kingdom represents with furry mascots. And if you have any that we forgot that you remember, please let us know. You can message us at fluffitpodcast@gmail.com on Instagram, and we would love to hear your take or which mascots we forgot.
Yeah, so I always kind of had it in my head that furry mascots were more of an American thing, but to be honest, after we talked about this, when I actually thought about it, we do have quite a few here in the UK, but they just seem to be used for a very different sort of variety of brands and things. So obviously I know in the US sports mascots are a huge thing. And here we do have them, but they really aren't that much of a thing. The only one I really remember well is the Wakefield Wildcats mascot, which is a wildcat, and he's a rugby mascot. And the only reason I really remember him is because at school, the Wildcats used to come in to do like a talk to try and get kids to play rugby. And sometimes somebody in the mascot suit would come in, and that was the only part I cared about. I wasn't interested in the talk. I just wanted to see the mascot. But other than that, I honestly can't think of any other sports mascots that we have. Like, they seem to be quite a rarity here.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that we use animal mascots, anthropomorphic furry mascots here in the States is sports. So particularly professional sports and college level sports. I would say more so in college level sports, although you do have animal mascots in professional sports. I grew up in a very religious family, and that practices Georgia Tech football on basketball as I'm exaggerating there, but a lot of people would say in the South, in the Southern United States, football is very much a religion of its own. And part of the way you would celebrate or cheer for your team is wear merchandise. And a lot of the merchandise, clothing, plushes, toys were mascots of these teams. So Georgia Tech has a yellow jacket named Buzz, and Buzz is this very quirky, like clumsy yellow jacket, and he's absolutely adorable. My dad graduated from Alabama for grad school, and they have a elephant. And then my mom graduated from Virginia Tech, and they have something called the Hokey Bird. And there's so many other mascots, like you have many bulldogs, you have many tigers, there's like a demon deacon who rides in on a motorcycle, you have a bear, multiple bears, wildcats, lynxes, you name it. There are so many different types of mascots, and they are very much beloved across the United States, not just in the South with college football and college basketball. Some of my favorite mascots are from the ACC, the Atlantic Coastal Conference. But these mascots very much kind of like what we talked about in our one episode about performing with Kumamon Bear in Japan. These mascots make a lot of revenue for the teams they represent, and they are very much the like faces of many teams. In many ways, you know immediately which team you're talking or someone's talking about when the mascot comes in. And very much they are kind of like their own personas in many ways, or the college's personas in many ways, because they represent the college and their teams very much when they're out and about.
that's really cool to me, because in the UK, like, we do have the mascots, but they're definitely sort of an afterthought, because I know the obviously the Wakefield Wildcats have the Wildcat mascot, and Leeds have a rhino, I think, for their rugby club.
Oh,
But
that's awesome.
it's just very much the mascot isn't what you necessarily recognize straight away. I mean, I know nothing about sport at all, but it's here in the UK, like, the teams are usually associated with the colours instead of an actual mascot, which I think is kind of boring. I'd rather have mascots. I think that's so much more fun and so much more unique. And definitely it's sort of a rare appearance if somebody turns up in the suit. I mean, I don't go to watch any football games or anything, or rugby games, but from what I have gathered from friends and just from hearing about it, is that the mascots are only there occasionally, and often only there on special occasions, and not, I mean, feel free to correct me if this is wrong, if anybody in the UK knows anything about this, but from what I think is right, is that the mascots they're just kind of, they exist, but they're not used like they are in the US, which I think is a shame, because there's a lot of potential for them to be used a lot more. But it's sort of similarly, when it comes to mascot suits, one thing that I am quite curious about is if the US has many theme park mascots, because here in the UK we used to, but a lot of them have been kind of sort of lost into a void, which I can talk a little bit more about. But I'm very curious to know if the US has many theme park mascots now.
The answer to that is yes, and I'll get to that very shortly, because I mean, a lot of mascots here in the States are used for kind of like publicity purposes. It's to advertise a team or advertise a company. So with either, if I mean, the college mascots are in TV commercials that make fun of one another. It's hilarious. I definitely recommend Sports Center ads on YouTube if you are curious. But here in the United States, they are used very frequently in theme parks. Two that I can remember very quick, or two I can name very quickly, is one, Disney World. I mean, Disney has so many animal mascots, either if it's their beloved Disney characters or even puppets. I mean, at the Animal Kingdom, they have like penguin, like polar bear, seal type puppet mascots that now represent part of the festivals that are seasonal at Animal Kingdom. And then at Great Wolf Lodge, which is like an indoor water park theme park, their two main mascots are wolves. I've never been to Great Wolf Lodge, but I remember one thing they did with the mascots for publicity was they were doing a free raffle where you can win a Build-A-Bear type wolf plush that were both of those mascots. And then Six Flags, although they don't have their own unique furry mascot, they use the Looney Tunes characters. So you can see commercials with Bugs, Taz, Sylvester, having fun at Six Flags. And then I know Universal, I don't think has a bunch. I could be wrong. I did not grow up with Universal, I must confess. And then there are so many other like little smaller parks that have their own animal mascots across the United States, but very much kind of like college sports, professional sports, these mascots are kind of used very frequently in TV commercials and this ads, because in many ways they represent the face of a company. And it's very easy for like kids to remember, ooh, that's the Oregon Duck, or ooh, that's Bugs Bunny riding the Six Flags coaster, or ooh, that's Nick Wilde and Mickey Mouse, stuff like that. So we really love our animal mascots here in the States.
Yeah, like, because what I was kind of thinking about in terms of theme parks is that in the UK, there seems to be this very sort of weird thing that seems to have happened over the years, and it's come to a point where it seems to be normality now for most theme parks, but they kind of latch onto a licensed character, a bit like what you said about Six Flags, but not as cool as that. I mean, it's very hard to get any mascots as cool as the Looney Tunes, but a lot of theme parks here will sort of latch onto something that's not very good. So something like Peppa Pig, or
Oh no.
some sort of kids TV program, usually aimed at very young kids,
Mhm.
not really overly family friendly, more aimed towards young kids. And they'll use that as the mascot, and it's just such a weird thing. Like I've noticed it a lot. So it's either that or the theme park just won't have a mascot. It'll just be a theme park. The only one I can think of off the top of my head that still has its own mascot, I mean, there's probably more than one, but the only one that I can think of is Sundown, which I mentioned in, I think it was the episode about performing. I had a weird encounter with the Sunny Bear from Sundown. Yes. They still have those mascots, which I appreciate. I'm glad they kept those. Good. But the only one I can think of other than that, which I don't think exists anymore, was Chessington World of Adventures used to have they were very big on Halloween. And they used to have a mascot called Jink, who was like, I think he was meant to be a gremlin of some kind, like a little purple gremlin. And I actually still have a plush of him, but I don't think he exists now. Like every time I look him up or anything, he doesn't seem to exist. It's almost like the plush is the only proof I have that he ever existed. But I think they're another one that's kind of latched onto licensed characters or just not having a mascot at all, which is a shame.
Yeah, that's really tragic. I mean, and I don't quite understand the reasoning behind that, because in many ways, like I've mentioned, furries are these mascots are very good, like easy things to remember. I mean, I remember that we have, I mean, not only sports or amusement parks, but I mean, fast food chains used to have animal mascots. I mean, McDonald's for a while had a chicken mascot, and then they had a few human mascots with Ronald McDonald. It was rather strange, but I remember that. And then we have something called Chuck E. Cheese, which is probably which inspired the Five Nights at Freddy's games. But they have a whole slew of cast of characters. Kind of creeped me out a little as a child, so I can kind of didn't go to Chuck E. Cheese's all that much, but I mean, there's so many different types of mascots here in the States for business reasons. And then we have as many as there are physical ones, there are many virtual ones. So I don't know what it's like in the United Kingdom, but one of the most popular ways of seeing animal furry mascots on TV are car insurance companies. So the two I can think of right off the bat immediately is the Geico Lizard. So we have a car insurance company called Geico. Save you 15% or more on car insurance. And we are not sponsored by Geico, as we just gave them that free advertisement. And then the other one I've seen on TV a lot is the Carfax. So this is another car insurance company or something similar. I'm not quite sure, but they're called Carfax. And I think it's a clever pun or like a clever mascot. I'm always terrified of that Carfax for a completely unrelated reason. I mean, but we have, and then occasionally Geico will do some different animal mascots, like Wilbur the pig, who will like scream "wee" all the way home in a few commercials. I loved it as a child. I find it annoying as an adult.
So like what you were just saying about, just to go back slightly, what you were saying about kind of restaurants. I mean, here in the UK, obviously we have McDonald's, which used to have the different mascots and doesn't anymore. And another case of this, I don't know if anywhere else in the world had this, but at Pizza Hut in the UK, every time I mention this to anyone, they don't know what I'm talking about. But Pizza Hut used to have furry mascots.
What?
They had Pizza Pup, and there was a purple cat who was a thief, like a bandit. And the Pizza Pup was like this white dog with like a leather jacket.
That'd be so cool.
And like every time I mention it, people don't know what I was talking about. But the only reason I know for a fact that that's right is because I had the toys as a kid.
What? No way.
I had a plush Pizza Pup and the evil cat and like a little plastic model of one of the characters.
That's so cool.
Honestly, if any of the listeners remember this, like, please let me know, because I want to know that I'm not the only person who remembers this. But again, it's just a sad case of them just getting rid of the mascots when there really is no need to get rid of them.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I loved them as a kid, so
I mean, I'm no near like the biggest Pizza Hut fan. I mean, obviously, they're a decent pizza chain, but you saw it here or you didn't see it. You heard it. I was like, what? There was furry mascots? That made me like, and that made me like think, okay, like I know this. I mean, I'm now invested. I mean, I'm now curious about these characters. I definitely want to see photos once we're done recording.
I'm gonna have to look for some, because I mean, I don't have the toys anymore, but for a good while, they were the only proof I had that had existed.
I will look.
Again, like the Chessington mascot, the only real proof now that he ever existed is a plush, which it's so sad to be honest.
Sad. I mean, if anyone here is like part of like a corporate like branch that talks about mascots, take notes, because you can see how invested we are.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, we have a few food mascots, more particularly the cereals. I think everyone knows about Tony.
Oh yeah,
they're great. The Twix rabbit. Tricks are for kids, not for rabbits. Another clever advertisement tag. And then we have a fast food joint called Zaxby's. This is a little bit of a more disturbing case of the mascots. They don't do it anymore, I think. But you had like these two chicken twins, and they would like be the ones that would give the kids their meals, and a lot of the kids' meals were chicken nuggets and chicken tenders, and it's this is weird. Okay. Hi, I'm a chicken. Hi, kid. You want some chicken? It's so weird. Creepy. I mean, and then Chick-fil-A, although they do have an anthropomorphic cow mascot. A lot of their commercials is with cows, like telling people not to eat burgers but to eat chicken instead. And they're quite they're quite humorous on TV. But the main one is, oh yes, the Cookie Crisp wolf. How can I forget Cookie Crisp? Really one of those more really obscure mascots. But a lot of food joints here in the States had furry mascots or still use furry mascots occasionally, but more kind of for the kid demographic.
Yeah, so I mean, here in the UK, not a lot of restaurants now use furry mascots. The only one I can actually think of, which isn't a UK restaurant, we've only just got one in Leeds, is Jollibee, which has a bee. But to go back to what you were saying again about cereal mascots, I mean, I honestly think that cereal mascots were probably the biggest one in the UK because we had a lot of them. Obviously, there was the Cocoa Pops monkey and stuff, and Chip the Wolf from Cookie Crisp was my favorite as a kid. I loved the animated cartoons with him. And this is an American one, but the Fruit Brute from Monster Cereals, I love him so much. I actually have a fursuit of him. But here's another interesting fact that you might not know and the listeners might not know. Cocoa Pops at one point in the very early 2000s had a raccoon mascot. And again, the only proof I have that this existed is a prize that came with the cereal, which is a little like bobblehead of him.
Oh my god! I
still have it. It's on top of my TV, and his name was Rocky, like Rocky Raccoon.
Raccoon.
Two-dimensional animated advert where him and Coco the monkey were like skateboarding. And I think it was for like a different type of Cocoa Pops that got discontinued, and therefore the mascot was lost into the void as well. But I don't know, maybe I'm one of very few people in the world who kept the cereal prize, which is this little Rocky bobblehead. But again, if anybody else remembers him, like, please let me know, because I'm just going down a rabbit hole here, but
yeah, I knew about
I'd like to know I'm not the only person who remembers these.
Yeah, I knew about the wolf. I never knew about the monkey until I visited the UK. We had our own version called, might be a different brand, but we have something called Cocoa Puffs, and it's an orange like bird that is like going insane, like Cocoa Puffs, ah! That's my best interpretation. Don't ask again, viewers. And then we have Toucan Sam with Fruit Loops. How can I forget Toucan Sam? But then, like, we would have some very obscure mascots. I mean, for example, one that's becoming popular quite recently is Emu Limu from Liberty Mutual, which is another insurance company. That's a emu bird that kind of has some anthropomorphic elements to him. My dad loves Emu Limu and those commercials. I don't really care much about them, but I mean, they've started to grow on me. We have Coca-Cola. I nearly forgot about this one. They have polar bears as kind of their mascot, and occasionally they'll do advertisements with the polar bears. And then trying to think, oh yes, I cannot forget Gorilla Tape and Duct Tape. Or no, Gorilla Glue and Duct Tape. Duct Tape had a duck mascot, and then Gorilla Glue, it's like a gorilla that will like crash and like give you like Gorilla Glue and then run off into the sunset or something. It's quite silly.
Yeah, what's quite interesting as well is that a lot of these products we do have in the UK, but they don't use the mascots. So like Coca-Cola, obviously I've seen the polar bear, but in the UK the Coca-Cola adverts don't have the polar bear. They're just boring. And yeah, the same for Gorilla Glue. I mean, I don't think that gets advertised. You can buy it here, but it doesn't get advertised.
This is one that this came very quick into my head that I just remembered, and now I'm like having like so many like memories as a child. Do you remember the icy polar bear or the slush puppy?
Slush puppy we still have here.
That's awesome.
You can still see him. There's actually, I don't know if it's still there. I hope it's still there. But in Brighton, there's like a giant inflatable version of him on the beach.
Awesome.
I mean, I hope that's still there.
Yeah, but we had something called the icy polar bear. It's like a polar bear like snowboarding with like an icy, and he looked really cool as like a 4-year-old child. I was like, dang, he's a cool character. He probably is very popular. Now I don't see him anymore. I'm like, no. What happened? Where is he? Is he safe?
I've seen pictures of him, but I mean, I don't think we have the brand Icy here. We just have Slush Puppy. But we definitely do have the Slush Puppy mascot. Like, you can just go into town and see him somewhere. He's very common. So talking about like brands and stuff as well, I mean, we don't have that many now, but there's a few. I mean, there's the Duracell batteries, which have a pink bunny.
Oh, yes.
As their mascot. And there's the Duck brand of like toilet cleaner that has a duck.
Oh no, no!
That's on some weird.
Nothing wrong with the duck. I just had a disturbance in the force. Any American viewer probably knows what I'm going to start talking about. Is we have these bears. They're occasionally blue. They're occasionally red. They're a family of bears, and these.
Oh, I know what you're gonna say.
Most strange commercials where they like romanticize stinking toilet paper, and it's weird. I get disturbed. It's like they're like hugging the toilet paper. They're like, it's like a Christmas miracle or something, and that's just like the stuff that I remember it. It's just one of those super strange. I just don't get it. I mean, it seems like some of the weirdest mascots are weirdest things have been caused by bear mascots. Either if it's Kumamon Bear in the hot tub, Melon Bear eating Kumamon Bear at
Sorry.
Melon Bear has struck in
my TV.
Yeah, but those toilet paper bears. Oh my goodness. I mean, there's a couple of mascots here in the States that you're just like watching on TV, and then there's like this obscure, really weird ad, and you're just like, what did I just see? I mean, it's like, it's kind of like something that you just don't expect to happen. I mean, let me know how you feel about those bears, because they disturb me. They creep me. I mean,
I've seen them. Like, we don't get the exact same adverts. Funnily enough, our toilet paper mascot, the main one that you actually see on TV, is a koala. I mean, that's pretty weird in itself, but those adverts are nowhere near as weird as the ones that you're talking about. Those are just extremely strange.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I mean, it's just super weird, but I mean, animals are used for almost every single like thing here in the States. I like brand wise. I mean, there's definitely more common places where you can see animal mascots. But I mean, they were used for a whole bunch of things. I mean, we still have some occasionally with like Target, it's a dog. When Toys R Us was a thing, it was a giraffe. I think it's finally back a thing again, so that's awesome. I think the big reason why animal mascots do so well in the States compared to so many other countries, I would say the exception is Japan, where mascot culture is just taken to a whole new level. And I'm so fascinated by that mascot culture. Is I think you got to remember America is a very like corporate thinking type country where a lot of people are thinking very much corporate and business and society. A lot of our sports events, a lot of our cultural events are sponsored by many companies. I mean, everything is so corporate focused here in the States, which has its pros and has its cons. And animals are a very easy way for companies to make their brand. It's a very common tactic for a company or a brand to be like, hey, this is something a viewer will remember. And there's definitely brands that I remember. I mean, I would have not have thought of the toilet paper company if I didn't see those bears. I wouldn't really remember much about the cereals, like the Cookie Crisp, or without remembering the character the wolf. It kind of gives a face to those companies and businesses. And especially if you're a young kid, it's like you're going to remember those faces as a young child. And I definitely will confess, there were definitely times where seeing an animal mascot attached to a brand, toy, food, whatever, it definitely made me like, hey, I want to try that out, or maybe I want that toy. So that's the one thing I would just say here in the States is I would definitely say the corporate side of the United States has probably allowed a lot of these mascots to flourish.
I totally agree. I mean, I was the same as a kid. If something had a furry mascot, if it was some kind of snack or cereal or something, I was probably a lot more likely to want it. And so they definitely do work. I mean, they make brands so much more memorable, and like the fact that we're even talking about it is just, it makes them so much more memorable. And I mean, going back to what we said about theme parks as well, like so many theme parks now in the UK don't have a mascot, and you kind of don't really associate them with anything in particular. Whereas when they do have a mascot, that's the kind of thing that you recognize them for. And I think the same with sports as well. Like, I know nothing about sports, but I know about mascots. So, you know, I only remember teams by the mascots, but there's so many in the UK that don't have a mascot. So I can't remember them.
Yeah, I mean,
So
there's
they
definitely mascots that you know, and some of my other friends who don't watch football, American football, know because I've talked about them, and just the weirdness. Because I love when Steve Irwin took on the Florida Gator, tackled him down on a Sports Center advertisement. It was just so hysterical. But I mean, I guess that's the one thing I'm just a little like stunned by is if it's proven that these animal mascots help corporations. I'm shocked that many don't use it. So I don't know if it's just people not really thinking twice about it, or if it's like if it has like fallen out of fashion or style in the corporate world. I'm no businessman or business wolf, excuse me. And I mean, it's just I don't quite understand. If any listeners out there are part of this corporate world and have a better answer, please let us know. We would love to follow up on the podcast about this. But it's a very interesting thing. And I mean, as someone who wants to create anthropomorphic characters for a living with my creative writing, it's definitely something back of my head every once in a while is maybe I might end up creating the next mascot for something. I mean, it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, now that you say that, like, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but nobody's going to know about this, but there's a spring company in the UK called JB Springs, and I actually designed their mascot, which is a spring with a face.
Oh, that's awesome. I remember.
I don't know if they still use him. It was a couple of years ago, but I did it as part of a uni project, and they selected my design, and that was used to get children involved with the making of springs, which is very random. But it was to sort of encourage a younger generation to want to work in a more industrial sort of industry. Yeah. So that was a real example of a mascot being used to entice people. So like what you were saying, I really don't know why more companies don't use that, because even if it's an object or a brand or something that isn't aimed at kids, that can still, kids will pick up on the mascot, and then they might start to develop an interest in that thing, or they might mention it to the parents who might be interested in that sort of thing. Yeah. So I really don't know why they don't use them more.
Yeah, I mean, one last example I'm going to give here real quickly, and I'm shocked I did not talk about this example, because this mascot has kind of taken over the United States with an iron fist. You see his face everywhere now, and at first I was like, how can you love this beaver? And then I'm starting to slowly love the beaver. It's kind of like a cult, like the Buc-ee's beaver. So Buc-ee's has become, it's a convenience store, gas station type chain that's from Texas that's become very popular in the States. I will confess, it's super nice, and they're great food, clean bathrooms, something you don't really see much in the States. But they have this beaver mascot, and oh my gosh, this face has just gotten everywhere around the States. I can't go one day in the public without seeing the Buc-ee's beaver. So maybe mascots are making a return. I mean, there's clearly love for them, and who knows? Time will tell.
Definitely. I mean, I hope that more and more mascots continue to appear, and I hope that the places that once had mascots maybe consider bringing them back, because that would be really cool.
Yes. But that is it for today's episode on Fluff It. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that you found this conversation interesting.
Yeah, thank you all for tuning in again. And if you remember any of these mascots, or if you have a favorite mascot or one that you think nobody else remembers, please leave us a comment or a message, or contact us, because we'd love to hear about that. It's such an interesting topic.
But I know, as I was just saying before I accidentally interrupted my co-host, if you have any evidence that these mascots did indeed exist and that we're not making these up, and I know we're not, please send us photos of any old toys, shirts or whatever, and we would love to share them on our story on Instagram. And if you love episodes like these, where we talk about furry mascots, or if there's anything you want us to talk about, please let us know on Instagram, on email. Let us know what you want to learn about the fluffy world of furries, as long as it's generally for a general audience. But we definitely want to hear your opinions about what you want to hear on Fluff It. And I mean, there's so many topics we can talk about, and I'm super excited to cover them all.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about, and we wouldn't even be here without the listeners. So it's super important for us to hear what you'd like to see. So never be afraid to send us a message. We'll read every message we get. We'll always consider feedback and consider ideas. So please don't hesitate to do that.
Yes, but thank you so much to everyone. And until the next episode of Fluff It, stay fluffy and have a fluff-tastic day.
We'll see you all next time. Goodbye.